talk more about this, Terry Holt, former senior advisor to Speaker John Boehner and a Republican strategist. I appreciate your time as always, Terry. I want to start in New Hampshire. We're hearing Governor DeSantis speak to his supporters there. A lot of the other candidates have visited New Hampshire after they stumped in Iowa. Why is New Hampshire such an important state right now?
Well, Iowa and New Hampshire are sort of the 1-2 punch that gets the Republican primary season off to the races. They're small states by comparison to Florida and Texas and New York and others. They are a microcosm of a kind of race that allows a dark horse candidate to organize themselves on the ground and become a national prospect. So New Hampshire is very important. The kind of scenarios today where you have town hall meetings, you have meetups, those are the things that New Hampshire voters have come to expect, that these candidates will get down and will get on the streets and in the neighborhoods to talk to people face to face, because that's what the first in the nation primary is all about.
The former president is the front runner, has been for a while. Ron DeSantis has picked up a lot of steam. People are talking about them. They seem to know who he is and some of his potential policies. The other ones, though, you've got 12 others on that list. Who do you see as the potential dark horse as they talk to people in New Hampshire?
Well, it's really up for grabs at this point. You mentioned that Donald Trump is carrying a lead. It's about 20 points, and it's very steady. Donald Trump hasn't seen fit to go in and be on the ground as much as some of these other guys have, because he hasn't seen the need. He's sort of sitting on a lead, as it were. And so that leaves the stage open to others. I mean, you see a guy like Mike Pence with his national security credentials, his ability to talk about the record of the Trump-Pence agenda, that could burn through. Nikki Haley has charted her own course. It's really up for grabs, and the New Hampshire voter knows that. They know that they are a litmus test and that they are a potential launching ground for primaries and caucuses that go on in the future.
Got to be careful, though, resting on your laurels, right, when it comes to politics. The Trump campaign is spending millions of dollars to slam Ron DeSantis. Do you think that's been working?
Well, it has, to the extent that Ron DeSantis' numbers have been sort of stuck in place. Trump has identified DeSantis as his main opponent, and so he's using the airwaves to define his opponent before he can define himself. But Ron DeSantis has plenty of money. I look for him to come into this race and tell his story, and for this to be quite a battle in New Hampshire. I think there is room for a third candidate in the party, and we'll see which one rises to the level where they can compete for the time that DeSantis and Trump have at the top.
Just one more question on DeSantis before I move on to some of the other candidates. We heard over the weekend some of his policies and plans for the border, ending birthright citizenship, finishing the wall, sending U.S. forces to combat the cartels. This sounds an awful lot like President Trump's policies as it pertains to the borders. What's different about what DeSantis is proposing, and who is he really speaking to here?
Well, he's speaking to the Republican Party base that sees the border open and porous and dangerous. And I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of daylight between the Republican candidates on the issue of immigration. We might see some of them change their position with regard to the birthright, but ultimately we're going to see a very conservative Republican Party when it comes on the immigration issue. I like what DeSantis said about the transnational narco-terrorism that is present at the border. We need to get a handle on fentanyl and on the cartels. And I think that's going to resonate well with voters as he goes in and talks to these people in the New Hampshire town halls.
Less than 30 seconds, but there's an opinion piece in The Hill. Douglas Schoen suggested that Virginia Governor Glenn Younkin would be a great fit for the GOP nomination, the best to potentially beat Joe Biden. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Doug Schoen is right. Our governor here in Virginia has done a great job of being a conservative without all the bluster. He's got the agenda. He's got the support of his party, and he's winning campaigns here in Virginia. He's also got sort of a national stature. He's polished. He understands the national picture fairly well. He would be a powerful person to be in the race, but let's not forget he's not in the race. And as long as he's not in the race, he's not really vying for anybody's attention. He's just sort of out there as sort of a what if. And I don't see that really taking the prize in New Hampshire this year.
Yeah, especially when you see the growing field of GOP candidates. Terry Holt, former senior advisor to Speaker Boehner, Republican strategist, as always, thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.